I remember many people's resume included they were part of the debate club. And debate clubs were fairly common while I was growing up. But we live in a world today where I think that maybe debate club might be an offensive term. Yes, everybody's offended by every single term there is nowadays. Why not debate club? Because here's the reality. Whenever a discussion about ideas comes up, even if they're very different ideas, there seems to be a tremendous problem with tolerance of saying, you know what, you and I may have very different viewpoints on a particular subject, but if we can have an intellectual debate, a debate that's rooted in ideas, usually grounded in some sort of fact or evidence, then we can have a healthy, sometimes a robust conversation, even where emotions may come up. But as long as we begin, number one, with respect, and there are certain ground rules, such as I'm willing to present my argument for what I believe to be true, and I'll do my best to fashion an intellectual defense, and you'll do the same, then I think we come out better. But man alive, today, it's very difficult to have a discussion with many people. And I'm going to say it's both the ultra extremes on each side of political ideologies or any particular subject. As a matter of fact, I'm going to make a few statements today that's going to ruffle a few feathers, because I believe without any question, there is a literal agenda where a small percentage of Americans are skewing the conversation and controlling it, because the minute somebody from, let's say, a majority background says something that differs from their opinion, we start painting with broad brushstrokes. You must be a racist. You must be too white. You must be a homophobe. You must be a misogynist. Now, by the way, a misogynist is not somebody who massages people. I had to look that up a while ago. Misogynist is somebody who hates women. But the moment you begin to have an intellectual debate with somebody and you disagree with them and they start calling you names by labeling you and put you into a category, that's unfair. And the problem is it marginalizes those people who represent a very large majority of people in the United States. Now, listen, I don't claim to be an expert on all the majorities, right? Because here's what I do believe. I believe that sometimes the majority can be wrong. Listen, there's no question about it, right? And when I hear the term or certain terms that are applied to people like me or anyone else, I start thinking about, well, is this turnabout as fair play, or is it just, somebody did you wrong, now you're going to turn it on me, even though I wasn't part of that thing doing wrong? I think that's childish, number one, and I think it's foolish, number two. I believe that if America or any place in the world is going to improve, that we need to have some common sense when we enter into a discussion. When we have to really sit there and parse out and figure out all these new labels that people want to be addressed by, where does it end? Now, I'm just talking common sense. When I was growing up, it was male, female. And I think pretty much throughout all creation, it's been male and female. And we use terms like Mr. or Mrs., Miss, Doctor, or counselor. We have different titles for things, right? But now a small part of America, a small part of the world, right? A small part of people who I believe, first of all, deserve recognition. And we should honor their feelings about things, but it doesn't mean that their feelings should change the way we do things. Now, I'm not talking about hatred, because hatred is just a wrong thing. Racism is wrong. And hating any group of people because they differ from you sexually, ideologically, in any way, shape, or form is just plain wrong. I'm going to stand on gospel principles that we are called to love one another. And Jesus upped the game right before he went to the cross by telling his disciples after he washed their feet. And by the way, if you don't know the significance of that, culturally back then, don't get your shorts in a knot, some of you people. Culturally back then, the lowest slave in the house was the one that was responsible to wash the feet of the visitors coming in because their feet were dirty from traveling. But Jesus decided that he was going to wash the feet of his disciples, and they were refusing. But he said, if you do not allow me to do this, you'll have no part with me. And Jesus was modeling a very powerful principle. He was saying that if you want to be the greatest among others, you must be the greatest servant of others. And then he shared this after dinner, and he said, I give you a new command, to love one another. Stop and think about that for a minute. How much racism, how much wrong thinking or political beliefs or laws would be legislated against gays or women or any other groups of people who do not deserve to be ostracized, penalized, or put down. Now, careful here. I'm not going into craziness. I'm just identifying that if we need to love one another. Jesus raised the standard because he had already told Pharisees, the religious people of his day, when they asked him, what is the two greatest commandments? And he said, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your brother as yourself. And then now Jesus steps it up and says, hey, I'm giving you a new command. How could loving one another be a new command? Because he's already said it. But here's how he defined it. Love one another the way I have loved you. He set an example. Now, I know some of you out there probably listening to me may not be Christians, and that's okay. But I think you get on board with me when it comes to love. A basic human element that is so key to really solving a lot of the problems we have out there. And yes, we live in a day today where the pendulum has swung so far the other direction that if I want to have a discussion about Black Lives Matter or about the LGBTQ community or about, do I have to approach you and ask you, hey, what do you want to be titled by? What do you want to be called by? If we have to have a conversation and I have a different opinion, am I going to be immediately marginalized? I'm not allowed. You're going to get angry and tell me I'm a racist, I'm too white, I'm too this, I'm too. You know what? If you want to call me something, do this. Call me too Christian, which means I put Jesus Christ first in my life for everything. And it means that I don't hate you. I can't. I'm not allowed to. Even though sometimes you make me angry, and I probably make you angry too. But I really am called to a higher standard. And if you want to call me something, please call me that. Because if you say I'm too white, I'm not allowed to have an opinion because of the color of my skin, what does that say about you? I mean, I lived through eras where Black men and women were fighting for civil rights so that they would not be called or counted by the color of their skin, but rather by the content and the character of who they are. Dr. Martin Luther King, one of the guys I love. We've gotten away from that because now it's a small percentage of people, a minority of people, who are now controlling the narrative. But then, and I don't mind them having a narrative. I don't have a problem with that. But if the narrative is foolish, what will it accomplish? And I mean this on both sides. We have people that are on the ultra-conservative sides who are digging in and saying, they're getting more racist, they're getting more prejudiced. And I believe some of it is fostered by the pendulum swinging so far. And hey, listen, we don't need that. We need people that are called by a higher purpose to say, you know what? We may have differences on how we see things, but I believe there's more common ground if people will just stop getting their shorts in an ideological knot. And here's what I mean by that. The moment you bring up a subject and you have a different opinion, chances are, now I've seen this in my world, and maybe you've seen it differently, but being more conservative thinking, not lacking in compassion for us. I think some people that are labeled liberals, I think they have some great ideas, and I think they're right on certain things. Yeah, I said it, but not everything. I don't think either party owns the right to say we got the corner on truth narrowed down. We own it. And I'd say the answer is truth exists in Jesus Christ, not in Black Lives Matter, not in white supremacy, none of this stuff. When it comes down to it, it's a distraction mechanism from a higher source, not a good one, that's keeping us at odds with each other because we fight over the most foolish things. And now we have, again, and I'm going to go back. For those of you who are more conservative, like I am, it wasn't that long ago when we'll call the conservative white group controlled the narrative, and a lot of the narrative oppressed black men and women and other minority groups, and it was that power was wielded unfairly. Now, not all of it, but a lot of it, and I get it. Yesterday, my sister-in-law in town, and she's more left-leaning, and I love listening to her because she's a very intelligent lady. We were conversing, and she was saying, you know what, I think it's unfair when me, and she was speaking about herself, as a Latina, as Hispanic, she and her husband, like my wife, they're from Colombia, and she said, I think it's wrong when I have to pay a higher mortgage rate simply because I'm Latin. And I listened to it, and I didn't argue with it because I didn't know. So when I came home, sitting right here, I'm in my bedroom right now because my entire house is torn apart, all the tiles up. And so this is my new office. And this is what I did. I actually got it and I started Googling and I started researching. And I discovered that there's a lot of evidence that the lending practices here in America might have some racist overtones or might have some prejudices against minorities. In fact, I think there's really strong evidence, and it was wrong. It incensed me, and I realized, okay, that's something I'm going to file away saying, listen, this is wrong, and I've got to get on the right side of this. It's got to be corrected, so I'm going to lend my voice and join with those individuals who feel the same way. Yet, I'm a conservative, and it means that I have conservative principles that are rooted in my Christian faith. And an injustice like that is an injustice. And it is systemic racism. And I do stand, I don't mean painting such a broad brush that everything is systemic racism, but I think systemic racism is real. And I think it needs to be addressed. And it doesn't matter the color of your skin, because remember, some of you said I'm too white. Wait a minute, am I now too black or too tan? Because I side that systemic racism is real and people of color have been marginalized and are being penalized because of the color of their skin? No, it's right is right and wrong is wrong. And the name calling is foolish. Let's have intellectual conversations. And without as much emotion, let's present our cases. I'm going to go back to the beginning. Debate can be very healthy. And it can help two parties have a greater understanding if they're willing to listen to each other and enter into the debate with rules that are agreed upon. Because if no rules, bloodshed, hatred, all these things happen, and they're just not right. So listen, I'm going to end with this today. I hope that if I've done anything, for those of you who are the left thinkers, the right thinkers, it's not about right or wrong. It's about just different ideologies. So let's stop the name calling. Remember, if you want to call me a name, call me too Christian. I'm okay with that. But to marginalize people by saying this narrative over and over and over again, and listen, by the way, I'm going to say this. If Coca-Cola does put, if they have, because someone told me this, and I don't know if it's true, but if they put on the side of cans, be less white or something like that, shame on him. I hope they go bankrupt. Yeah, I did say that. because that's just wrong. You're going to now target people like me who, like, I don't look at myself as any better than anyone else, except for where I excel in my behavior and my character and my talents and my abilities, which are developed over time. They're God planted, but they have to be grown. If I'm better than somebody at something, I'm okay to saying that, but not because of the color of my skin. Because sometimes the color of my skin causes me to burn real easy and get skin cancer a lot faster. That's why I see the color of my skin being a disadvantage. And I know there's an advantage, but I don't take advantage. I don't actually walk in that or even think about that, because my goal and my target is to serve Christ and to lift up those who are disenfranchised, to support those who are out there doing the work to help other people be rescued many times from a plight that, whether they caused it themselves or it came upon them naturally, hey, it's my obligation to do my best to impact the world in the best way until God takes me home. Listen, I hope that you're okay with healthy debate, having conversation, and that conversation should start with willingness to listen to the other party. So here I am. I'm willing to listen to you. Tell me your position, but please have a rationale and a reason and back it up with some evidence. Don't just throw ideas around because you just feel that way or you heard it somewhere. That's why there's so much discourse today, because people are spouting ideologies they heard, and this is both sides are guilty. They hear something and they repeat it as if it's gospel without doing the mental work of checking it out and researching it. And listen, just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's true. You've got to get a number of different sources. Check out the sources, understand their biases, because bias is very prevalent, and really do the homework. And then don't become concrete in your opinion. Allow it to just sit there. And then as new information comes in, and that opinion can become more firm, but never immovable. Core values should always stay firmly fixed. But opinions about different subjects, we should remain a little bit more flexible. Hey, listen, Dr. Ron, this is Dr. Ron, and I've got to get going because I got some stuff to do right now. Have a wonderful and blessed day.